Okay, I don't know whose clock is right. Vita, is that your job to know exactly when we start these meetings?
It could be.
I have 1:59.
Yep, we got
One
about
more minute to go?
Well,
45
probably less than that.
Oh,
Oh, and see, Dave's got that other hand thing going.
all right.
30 seconds.
No, it's 2 o'clock.
Somebody's
It's
going to
close.
rush through the
2
door.
o'clock.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is to announce that we're going to have an executive session immediately following this meeting. No action to follow. And
Personnel.
for personnel. The second item is our weekly commission reports, and so Commissioner Moore.
Okay, there is a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting this afternoon at 5:30. I have a Housing Coalition meeting tomorrow, as well as a Capital Land Trust event. On Friday, I have a Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization meeting in Port Townsend. On Saturday, the event that I announced last week for that Saturday is actually happening this Saturday. So this is the Girls' Night Out event, and I hope everybody can attend that. It sounds like a fun time and very well worth raising money for the organization. Also, I will be attending the Legislative District 35 delegate meetup and potluck entitled Dine with the 99. So that's it for this week.
All right, Commissioner McDowell.
Wednesday, a 1 p.m. conference call for potential litigation for C Street cleanup. Thursday, weekly briefing with Vicki because Dave won't be here, right? And Friday, I'm going to the Lincoln Day dinner at the Elks. And Saturday, I am going to join the Girls' Night Out.
Does that complete your weekly report?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Myself, or I, will be attending tomorrow on Tuesday a MACECOM board meeting. On Wednesday, I will be also involved with that conference call for the C Street experience. Afterwards, I will be going to the Chamber of Commerce after hours at our Community Federal Credit Union. On Thursday, I will be driving to Bellevue, where I'll be attending a informational meeting with a number of other city politicians amongst mayors to talk about mental illness and homelessness. This is our second event that we were talking, or I have been met with other leaders statewide to talk about this issue. And then on Friday, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. So that completes our weekly commission reports.
I have one more. I forgot to
Sure.
add. I will be at the after hours on Wednesday at the Community Credit Union.
Okay?
Uh-oh, I will be there too. And I will also be present for the executive session conference call.
Okay. That completes our weekly commission reports. And now we have many guests in the crowd I see that have come to hear a proclamation. And so at this time, Vicki is going to read a proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the Shelton High School Key Club is celebrating 50 years of service in the city of Shelton, and the Key Club International, which is sponsored by Kiwanis International, is the largest high school service organization in the world, and the members of the Shelton High School Key Club are a part of an international organization of more than 250,000 high school students dedicated to serving their homes, schools, and communities. And Key Club members promote the development of student leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, and professional development. And each member learns the value of volunteerism and contributing his or her time and talents to help others. And the Key Club International Major Emphasis Program, Children, Their Future, Our Focus, is designed to involve Key Club members in the challenges facing young people. And whereas the service provided by the Shelton High School Key Club has a positive and meaningful impact on our community and citizens, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Shelton, Washington, does hereby proclaim April 10th through the 16th of 2016 as Key Club Week. We commend these young men and women for their commitment to be better, more responsible citizens, and thank them for their invaluable service to our community. We ask the Commission to make a motion to proclaim this week as Shelton High School Key Club Week. Yes.
Okay, I move that we proclaim this coming week Shelton Mason Key Club Week in the city of Shelton.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
We
And we bless
proclaim
it.
that. There we go. We bless that.
We do have some members of the Shelton Kiwanis group here. I don't know if they...
Would someone like to say something? Speak on the issue?
Okay, come on, Wally, come on. All right. No, okay. I'm Bob Stone, I'm the president of the Shelton Noon Club, which is one of the sponsors of the Key Club at the high school. We've been the sponsor the past 50 years. Also, the Hood Canal Club is one of the sponsors of that club also. So they help us sponsor these kids. But we have with us Dave O'Leary, he's a member, and you were a Key Clubber too, right, Dave?
Yes, I was.
Yes, he was.
At another time.
Yeah, okay. And Wally, he was an advisor before my time. Don Purnell was our club secretary and fine citizen of this town. And like I say, we are very pleased with supporting these fine youth. We go to conventions, we try to do community things. We want them to be leaders in our community. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mayor, may I ask that the Commission sign the proclamation so that we
Absolutely.
can turn it over? Okay. Bob, if you want to, I'll have the Commissioner sign this, and then we can get that to you.
I'm doing my special signature. That's where I think about what I'm doing. Sometimes I rush through these things. Oh, yeah. I knew you left her out, but,
me so busy, yes.
yeah, I know. So you're going to do a little photo op or something, or? No? Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Now, according to Robert's Rules of Order, I'm going to revert back to our commission reports because I left another thing out. So, we're going to go back for just a second. A friend of mine that I met in city government from the city of Cosmopolis found this game. It showed up one of their auctions, and so he thought he'd get it back. It's a game, it's a board game that was done of Shelton in 1997. And Commissioner Moore and I think Commissioner McDowell both kind of remember it, and maybe Vicki played it, I don't know. But we have it. It looks like it's in mint condition, and it was given to me as mayor, and I'm merely bringing it because I think we ought to think about where it would go, if it's worth anything at all. And I kind of thought, I think 100 years from now it could be worth a lot more. So my suggestion, I'll make mine first, is that we ask the museum first if they have a copy of this game, if they would like to have this, and that, that would be my first. Commissioner Moore had another option, which I think would be okay to do something with it, but I don't know, should we first ask the museum?
Sure.
Okay, and then if they don't know if they have a place for it or want it, then maybe we could entertain. It's up to the commission, I guess, to probably decide, and that's why I didn't want to make a decision. So I don't think we have to have a motion on that, do we? Do you think that's a good idea?
No.
Try to see if the museum wants it. Okay, so I'm going to give this to a delegate, a city employee. I'm going to give this to Eric over here. Eric, there you go. Thank you. Eric, you find a home for it. First, is try the museum. If not, then bring it back and we will.
Well, maybe it can be auctioned off at different auctions.
Well, that could happen
It can
too.
be like the fruitcake
Sure.
that keeps getting passed around.
It's possible,
Shows up
but
at
then
the auction.
the only problem I have is that somebody's going to take it home, their kid's going to open it up and rip up all the pieces, and it's should be preserved, I think. So let's just do that one, and if not, then we'll figure out what we got to do. So that completes our weekly commission reports again. All right. So now, moving forward, what we have is, I believe, a consent agenda. Nope, general public comment. If anybody would like to speak, now would be the opportunity. You would sign, and we have an opportunity to speak for a 3-minute. So,
Marilyn Vogler.
okay.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. The commission recently took bold action to deal with vacant lots in Shelton. The law required it be broader than that, but remember, it was first to deal with vacant lots. There was disagreement, there was loud public outcry, but you moved ahead anyway. I'm asking you today to be equally as bold in dealing with vacant buildings. They are equally at issue in costing the city money. There's no active utility hookup. They increase our public safety costs with fire and police calls. They lead to abatement projects that the city has little money for. They lower our property taxes because they deteriorate and they impact neighboring properties. And I think I've told you already that my home is in an area that had 6 vacant homes within a 2-block radius. I paid $600 less property taxes in 2015 than I did when I bought my house in 2011. This is a real hit. In addition, they make Shelton a less desirable place to visit and to live. It's such a serious problem that the U.S. Conference of Mayors issued a guide to vacant and abandoned properties, and I have a packet of handouts for you in a minute. A number of cities have passed ordinances requiring inspections and permits for vacant buildings. I'm also providing you a list of cities in Washington that do this, so it must be legal in our state. I'm providing you an example of Spokane's specific ordinance, which they revised this year. What they did was strike the word abandoned and replace it with foreclosed. And so it's apparent they are dealing specifically with the same problem that Shelton is dealing with. It's also possible the city could place these homes in receivership. RCW says when a party is determined to have an interest in property and when the property or its revenue-producing potential is in danger of being lost or materially injured or impaired, receivership is possible. But I'm not a lawyer advising that. I don't know specifically. We can't afford to wait for banks and holding companies and real estate firms to decide the market has recovered enough that they can put them up for sale at prices that outprice many of our residents' ability to buy them. We need affordable housing now. You have asked developers and builders to do what they can do to help Shelton recover economically. It's now time for the commission itself to do what it can do. It took 3 months for the mayor's proposal to be written on the books and put into place. I'm hoping 3 months from now we have material on the books to deal with vacant homes. And as I said, I have a packet of information for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And the email did go out with
I
the,
saw that.
okay.
Yeah, I did get that.
Dickie sent you a list of links as well that I forwarded.
Thank you, Marilyn.
All right, anybody else signed to speak at this time?
No.
Okay, there is another opportunity a little later in the meeting. If someone would like to, that would be another opportunity. All right, are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda? It's a little bit different, I guess, because it looks like we just have one item under it, so I guess we're ready for a reading of the consent agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have on the consent agenda, commission meeting minutes for the retreat of March 25th, 2016.
Could you please read every word of them, please? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding. A little humor. Okay, so I don't know how to, I've never done one of these before where we had just minutes and a statement. Do we discuss it? Do we just approve that we have these on record?
It's just the consent
I-
agenda.
Consent, just make a motion to
Just
approve the
wanna-
consent.
I
Okay.
move that we
Okay.
approve the consent agenda as read.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so that packet of papers got approved or entered in, consented. All right, moving right along is we have an item under old business, and this is part of our work on our comprehensive plan, and Mr. Steve Goins is going to present that to us at this time.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As you're aware, we're in the throes of our periodic comprehensive plan update. We have reviewed two of these elements previously. We're bringing these back with further refinements and opportunities for discussion, trying to meet a larger target of having all of the elements reviewed in a draft that we can send forward to the state by the end of June. So we're kind of rapidly moving here at this point. The two elements that you have in your packet are the latest draft for the land use element and the housing element. Some of the elements that you want to kind of focus on, within the land use element, there's a table that describes the current land use distribution. It's likely those numbers will be refined, and I'll bring this back in a couple weeks, hopefully for what will be the final review of this particular draft. We're working with the GIS department at Mason County to finalize these numbers, get the acreage that's designated these various land uses accurate, and have that incorporated in this update. A lot of the elements that you see here are really ways to make the document current. We have a lot of data from the 90s, early 2000 era that we're updating, and that's a significant piece of the update that this consists of. One element that was changed considerably, I'll try to find the page. I'm not seeing it here. It must be in the housing piece. In this element, the different land use designations are briefly described. We didn't see a lot of changes in those. We did describe the future land use map fairly differently. And again, some of the population numbers that are here, we're still trying to settle those and get those where we're in alignment with Mason County, the allocation for growth for the next 20 years.
Can I just make a brief comment about one thing I see in here?
You bet.
Okay, it's on page 17, and we might want to change this wording on this, I think, because it says the city shall coordinate with the Simpson Timber Company to prepare waterfront development plan. Now, they still own property, but is that /Sahara Pacific? And, I mean, I don't know. This was written before Sahara Pacific became a player, but I believe Simpson still owns a lot of that. Like, I guess they still actually own the waterfront, don't they?
They currently do at this moment in time. Their, I think, objective is to sell that large parcel that's part of the waterfront to Sierra Pacific Industries. But they are the landowner today.
So this actually works, I guess.
It does. Maybe a better way to word that is to describe it as the owner of that industrial waterfront rather than an individual corporation, which would, I think, serve us better over time.
Yeah, just a little,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you at your flow. You did have a flow, and I jumped in there.
That's okay.
Can you go back to the flow?
I can try.
Sorry.
I am all goofed
Oh,
up now.
God,
That's all
I knew
right.
I just should have.
I think I was talking about population numbers.
Yeah.
So we're trying to align our population projection with what Mason County allocates to us. And I just recently received some data from Mason County. We think we have a handle on the current population for the unincorporated portion that's within the UGA. And that's included in our growth projection, so we're trying to get those numbers finalized. The second half of this, if you will, is the housing element. And the housing element describes some of our goals and objectives for providing housing and what we anticipate our needs are. And this, again, some of the language changed a fair amount. A lot of it had to do with current data on what household incomes are, current populations, and those types of things. This is where there was one element that was substantially rewritten. And I added some different tables in here. And this is on page 11 in this element. It's the homelessness component. I thought this warranted a sort of a revisit, if you will. I think this is a national topic, really, that I think we've had a lot of discussion in Shelton about. And so we thought that maybe a different perspective, a newer perspective on the homelessness issue was warranted. So we redrafted that portion in its entirety. So you can take a look at that. And
I did
again,
read that.
if you have comments on these components, please get back to me. I'm trying to finalize the draft form, and I believe I'm coming back with this in 2 weeks, which would be April 25th. And hopefully, at that point, it'd be the final review of these before I have the complete draft before you later in the year. So unless you have any further questions, that concludes my presentation.
Questions or comments?
No, thank you. I'm going to have to study it a little
Yeah,
more.
I read every word,
Nice
and then I
reading
went
here.
back and underlined a few things, and the one thing was what we talked, and you and I have talked also on, this is kind of like a visionary, a 20-year thing, and so a lot of what was pertinent 10 years ago is still pertinent and will be pertinent on what a vision for the city of Shelton would be, so
Good job.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next is under, that's our old business, this will be new business now, and this is a, something that's talking about some black rock. And I am a little familiar with that, it's different than gray rock, it costs more money, I think. So, anyway, and this is gonna be Greg Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Yeah, the city, we decided to, we purchased a lot of black rock for our roadway work, and we decided, like asphalt, we wanted to go out to several vendors that do that locally, and locally is kind of a big area, actually, to try and secure, competitive bids for that material. We want to be able to pick it up typically. We need it when we need it, and so we get a better price by picking it up. So we went through the Small Works MRSC roster to solicit for bids. We contacted about 7 companies, and only 2 bids came in. One was from Kennedy Creek, who was the low bidder, and the other bid came in from Northwest Rock, which is out of Aberdeen. It's roughly about a 76-mile round trip, and their prices on rock were actually more than we could get it at Kennedy Creek. So our plan here, requesting the commission to award the contract to Kennedy Creek, place it on the consent agenda next week, and for the mayor to sign the contract. The contract would be good for this year with a possible extension for 1 more year in 17. So the prices, it actually included rock for 5/8 minus, 3/4 construction grade, 1.5 inch ballast, 3x6 inch rock, so kind of a slag type of larger fractured rock, 1-man rock and 2-man rock for using on walls and other things. So it was a very, and all of the bids came in significantly lower from Kennedy Creek. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Your Honor, this didn't see a contract, so.
Oh, you're right, it wasn't attached. I will get that to the commission for review as soon as I can, and apologize for that.
it sounds like it's a good thing to do, and they're right out of town, right over here, and it sounds like I've used them for years and stuff, so I don't have any big objections to this. So on this particular item, do we need to look at the contract before we do
You
anything?
should
or-
do, yeah, you gotta do old business if you haven't got
Okay.
it, so you've got opportunity to review it before you. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions or comments about this?
I would just like to say that I'm always happy when our local businesses come in the low bids, so we're able to keep that money in the county.
Yes.
So what we'd like to do is, we're leaning in your direction. We'd like to put this under old business next week with the contract that we can review.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next is item number 2 under new business, and this is going to be, we're going to turn the meeting over to Eric Burke for a little bit. He's going to talk about some reappointments to the City of Shelton Historical Preservation Board.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commissioners. I don't know, this one kind of went right over my head. We have a board of 6 members on our Shelton Historic Preservation Board. I've always had a little bit of confusing problem about the 3-year terms. And I was assuming that their terms would have been ending the end of this year, 2016. But as I found out from the administration side that, and Leslie Ann kind of pointed it out to me too, that we had 4 members, but actually there was a correction down to 3 members. Dave Salzer, Kathleen Wall, and Bill Basakos, whose term actually ended January 1st, 2016. We didn't get the notice until after our meeting in January, so I brought it before the board requesting for a reappointment, and sometimes a reappointment letter gets a little bit slower than usually. So after some prodding of the members, I finally got their letters. All 3 of these members, Dave Salzer, Kathleen Wall, and Bill Basaka, are longtime residents of the city. Extremely hardworking. They know more than I do in regards to historic preservation issues and so forth. I cannot, we have 3 members on the board right now, so we are able to make, motions and approvals. But without these 3 members, the board would be lacking. So I'm asking for a reinstatement of these 3 members, and then bring these 3 members back in under the consent agenda for April 18th. So that's pretty much the request.
Questions or comments?
I am very thrilled that these 3 decided they would like to serve another term on the board, and hopefully more. But I think it's going to be a critical time and a lot for our preservation board to do over the next few years. So I'm really glad to have this expertise wanting to help us
I have
out.
to totally agree with you. I mean, these 3 members are invaluable to the board. They bring viewpoints that is nice to see, and they balance the board. So,
Sounds like a good marriage.
yep.
So what are you looking for
I'm
us
looking
today?
to have the reinstatement of their terms brought into the consent agenda for April 18th, Mayor.
Okay, so it appears we concur that this is a good idea.
Yes.
We can move forward with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. O'Leary, the meeting is yours. Says turn it over to you.
For the administration,
I think so.
am I reporting on something?
Well-
I actually would like
Just
to do a
after.
report at this time as well.
Okay.
So unless
Okay.
someone wants to go
So I do have
first.
See, now we got something. That's how we did it. All right.
No, we were put on, this isn't typical for a commissioner to do, but we were put on notice, if you remember, a few weeks ago that we needed to come up with a plan for the dispatch office down by the Roundhouse, that it was in an area that Sierra Pacific needed to put their utilities trenches in. After looking at it and checking into financing for the project and the bad news that Sierra Pacific got in that the building was full of asbestos and would require a very large remedial removal of the asbestos. And looking at the fact that we would have to move the building not once, but twice, assuming that we are able to secure a permanent home for it in the general vicinity of the Roundhouse, and discussing it with the contractor and people who are going to help move it, we've come to the decision that it makes far more financial sense to allow Sierra Pacific just to demolish the building at the time after they pull the asbestos out. But what we will be doing is we will be given access to the building so that we can inventory it, take measurements, and also collect anything that is usable from the building in the way of salvage to set aside at a time when we are able to recreate the building. And part of the monetary consideration for this too is the fact that the building has been changed considerably over time. And so almost for the price that it would take for us to move it a couple times and recreate the building, we can very easily recreate it. And I might have said renovate the building. We'll be able to rebuild it the way that it used to look, which, as someone who's spent years in historic preservation, this pains me to say, but it seems to make a lot more sense. And I think we'll come up with a better product in the end. And I've had a number of people who have promised they would help when it comes time to build it, and also donations are waiting for that. So we need a piece of property close to the Roundhouse.
Safety was a concern too, with having a store elevated.
Well, yeah, there were many concerns for that. And that is true. We felt that the potential for vandalism was much greater if we had it stored on a back lot somewhere or on a vacant lot. So we'll look forward to that project, and we will bid it a fond farewell. And we will also thank Sierra Pacific for giving us an opportunity not only to get in and inventory what is there so that we have those pictures, and also to go in after the asbestos is removed and salvage anything that we can. So that isn't what I was hoping to say, but I think this is the best decision.
I agree.
Yep, sometimes that's, the other problem I see is that over all those years, they've done, they just put the old T111 on top of. And,
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, if you have the measurements and you have some of that original hardware and stuff, you make a nice brand new replica of, and that would probably be,
Yeah, as long as we have the old photographs and everything. It's part of this reason too is because the building has already been moved. It has lost a lot of its historical value other than the location. And if we're losing that location too and moving the building 2 more times, it pretty much loses all of its historical value. So we'll make it look good
There
when
you
we
go.
rebuild. But that's my report.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Moore. Mr. Leary, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Now is a general public comment, and I would like to take the first opportunity to be first on that list. Do I have to sign in? Or I just insert my, because I wanted to say something.
Okay,
Okay, is it okay that I didn't sign in?
you're not
All right.
a general public.
You're not general public.
Can I add it this time? Can I? I'm just wanting an opportunity to speak. I wanted to, and I didn't speak right at first when Marilyn talked, but I just wanted to say that we, as a commission, are very concerned about this issue of the vacant buildings, of the rundown buildings, of the foreclosures, and that I can speak for myself. I'm sure the other commissioners, I've talked to them about their concern on this. And how you do this stuff, and you know, what you do, I would probably say, Larry could testify that probably once a month I come into his office and say, I want that thing torn down right now. And he says, we got the law, we got the legal, says, I want this down now. I mean, I'm with you all on the passion that we want the city to be a better place and clean things up. And we can only give grace so long, and then it's got to be taken care of. So I know that Mr. Leary and I talked a lot about the legal, and the whole abatement process is such a wonderful process, but it needs money to keep kind of going. But when the abatement process, when we started this, if we had sold the properties that we've done that, it has a self-funding mechanism, and so the key, we're kind of waiting for some property to sell so we can have a little more money into that fund for that element of it. As far as, we have talked also several times, I think over the past year or so, if I go over, let me know, okay? Just kidding. Many times we've talked about what it would take in getting the banks, okay? Banks, look at guys, clean them up, board them up, or else we'll take, you know, I mean, I don't mind telling banks, you got to do your part for this community too. I think because we're involved with so much and everything takes money, sometimes these things, it's hard to get them in the process, but I will say that it is a concern of mine, and that I do know that I would anxiously like to sell whatever property that we have abated and get the money back into that pool and get that thing moving as fast as we can. We have the opportunity in what we've done in lowering some fees and whatnot, that along with building new houses and new businesses, this needs to just ramp it up. Everything takes money. That's our biggest issue with almost everything, is we just don't have the money. But Marilyn, thanks for putting that together for us. We are, I mean, I know I'm right there. I look at stuff and I just say, I don't care about the law, rip it down. Well, we can't. We got to care about the law. We got to do it right. But we will continue the discussion and continue to do the best we can on a lot of these things. I appreciate Steve Goins has worked really hard through the abatement thing. I mean, literally, we tell 10 people we're going to rip your houses down. About 8 of them came around and did a lot of the work themselves. So it's just one of those situations where it frustrates me probably. That is something I've been very passionate about, trying to figure out how to do it and do it legal. The abatement process is the best way to go, but it needs to get moving, I think, to catch up. So that was my 5-minute rant on that.
I have a question, this is for Steve. When, like, I'm thinking of the house up on Coda Street, the end that they privately tore down, demolished, and there's just a big pile of rubble up there. Is there a time frame that they have to come in and clean that up?
The permit usually has a sunsetting period. Typically, that's 6 months, unfortunately. However, there are times where we can condition a project to deal with things in a different way. I think in that case, the property owner is committed to getting that done in, what is it, about 6-8 weeks?
Less than that. I've met with the property owner last Friday. He was out there with one individual. They were going through separating all the wood into piles for sending to the recycle center, the lumber. Yeah, and I asked him, I mean, I had the same thought as you were. How long are you going to be here, and you know, and when are we going to look at seeing the ground? And he said 2 weeks. So he's pushing this thing because he would like to develop that lot. But right now, the money is tight with him, and it's usually just him and another individual. And they're picking one piece at a time, because I was kind of worried about the asbestos and the insulation. I went to the ground because I had received phone calls in regards to complaints about it. I want to be everybody insured, but we had moisture, so the insulation was compacted down. So there wasn't any blowing and anything drifting to other people's property. So we're within 2 weeks, maybe 3, okay?
Okay, great.
All right. Anybody else like to speak?
Forrest Cooper.
All right. Welcome, Forrest Cooper.
Thank you very much, Commission. Mayor, I'm Forrest Cooper, 807 South 14th and 409 West Railroad. Well, we're on the subject of it, commercial buildings and abatement and derelict buildings, all that kind of stuff. You know, I've been very outspoken on the abatement process. I am overall very supportive of the cleanup that's happening, and I think there's some wonderful things happening. But again, I want to reiterate that you want to use extreme caution when you start working with a building that might be in our downtown area or have some historic value to it. Anytime you start dealing with the severing of a commercial block by removing a building that ties them all together, you start to create a disconnect within that commercial business area. So I want you to just keep that in mind as you start looking at commercial buildings and what to do with them. We do have some derelict ones that are on their own piece of property and need to be taken care of in their own right. But when we start dealing with city blocks and we start dealing with downtown commercial areas and things like that, let's really keep in mind what it will do afterwards, because we don't want to get stuck with another parking lot where there used to be a retail space. A good example is the parking lot that's right next to the old hotel building, the Shelton Apartments on First and Railroad. That business that was there burned down, and then over time it became a parking lot. But you could drive by and anybody could visually see what happens when you basically knock out someone's front tooth. That's pretty much what's happened down there. You've severed the block, and now there's this fixture. So keep that in mind, and some great alternatives to those I've brought up before, and it was actually referenced in the Community Vision and Action Plan, is to start considering a facade improvement program, a way that we can fix up the facades of these buildings and actually encourage the property owner to want to do more. Let them know that we're all here working together and we want to see the city succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? This is the general public comment period. Now is the opportunity. Okay, so our next meeting, any administration final touches?
Vicki.
I believe that we have a tentative agreement with our police guild, and I will be bringing that forward as soon as they take a vote.
Other touch? Sit, Your Honor.
All right, our next meeting will be next Monday, April 18th at 6 p.m. in the evening. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, we are having an executive session following this meeting. Thank you.
15 minutes, no action. Is that good?